Good evening and welcome to another edition of Astrotheology. I'm your host, Shemesh, the Sun Man. It's summertime, it's very hot outside, it's very humid, the waves are big, and I will be surfing tomorrow. But the purpose of this video is to talk about paganism. Paganism is the road to monotheism. Paganism is the road to monotheism, and unfortunately, monotheism was the road to atheism. And a lot of people have abandoned monotheism in favor of atheism because they were disconnected from nature and from the natural occurrences which were the foundation of Christianity. And so it is my opinion that if you want people to become Christian, you should first have them become pagan. All of the early Christians were originally pagans, and so there's actually a sequence of events to becoming a Christian, which requires one to first be a pagan, because all the original Christians were previously pagans, and when they adopted Christianity, it perfected their religion because they were no longer worshiping Tammuz, particularly, but they were worshiping the Creator God of Genesis. So that it had completed their religion. Because the Creator God of Genesis is a God of truth and justice and virtue and righteousness, not just nature. It transcends nature, and so it perfected paganism. And so here's the point. First of all, let's just talk about Europe and America. America still has quite a bit of Christianity. Europe is losing its Christianity. You have an influx of people from Middle Eastern countries and African countries bringing Islam, in Pakistan, bringing Islam into Europe. Of course, in Islam, they have a fake Muslim prophet Jesus, which they believe is the real Jesus because see, here's the thing. They didn't get their Christianity from paganism. They got it from other Christians. But they didn't understand it, having not first gone through the paganism of it. Didn't understand it. None of it made sense, so of course they invented a new Jesus who's just a Muslim prophet, which just makes the whole thing, frankly, quite worthless. And the reason I bring that up is because I've been debating Muslims, and they have certain points that they're bringing up, which most Christians and most Europeans have no idea that these are very easily refutable points. Number one, they say our Bible was corrupted. The fact of the matter is, Europe has the original Bible. The Jews did not preserve the Bible, the Christians did, and the Christians preserved it in Greek. It was written in Greek by the Jews of Alexandria, Egypt, during the reign of Ptolemy, and that is the Bible which all other Bibles are translated from, including the one that the Orthodox Jewish Bible. They used the Greek. They used our Greek Old Testament to make their Bible. In around 400 AD, they finally put together a Bible. They did not preserve the Bible. The Christians preserved the Bible in Greek. We still have that Bible. It's online. You can read it. So for the Muslims to say, for instance, that our book was corrupted, it's kind of silly because their book is a completely corrupted version of the Bible that almost looks nothing like it because the characters have been totally changed. It's a very bad version in that it doesn't align with the original. Now, another thing they'll say is that there's a lot of contradictions in the Bible. That's because a lot of different authors wrote it. It's not written by one person. We don't claim that God wrote the Bible. The Bible was written by men. So men have different inspirations that they're writing in there at different periods of time, and there's a lot of stuff in there that people don't understand because they don't understand the context of the time. Like it's the Iron Age. Why are they so violent? Well, it's the Iron Age. The Iron Age is violent. Everyone's killing everybody. Everyone's exterminating everybody. So it's violent. And that's where the Bible was really born out of the Iron Age with Hezekiah and other warriors who used this religion in their for their warrior cult. It was a warrior cult, and that's why it was violent. Of course, it changed over time. And you had people trying to define what the God of Israel was as a God of truth and justice and virtue. Isaiah defines it that way. Proverbs really defines it that way. So the authors of those books really defined it that way. And so That's how it's defined again in Christianity and the Gospels. So, but here's the thing. One of the reasons why Christianity got kind of complicated and misunderstood and people just started abandoning it, the first people that really started to abandon it were, and I understand the Protestant movement trying to change and get away from the Roman Church, okay? So I understand that. And so in the East you had the Eastern Orthodox Church, and of course they retained an Orthodox religion. In the West, we didn't really, because what happened was the more it got away from paganism, the more it didn't make any sense, and then people it became disconnected from paganism. To the point that today, particularly in America, people say, oh, Christmas is pagan, Easter is pagan. I don't want to celebrate these pagan holidays, it's not Christian. In other words, they're so divorced from the original religion, which is paganism, that they're going to throw out everything thinking that there's some pure version of it. That's kind of what the Muslims did. They looked for this pure version of a religion that wasn't pure, that came from paganism. And so the way to purify the religion is to first become pagan. And then after you become pagan, realize that Christ is the God of nature. And that's what they're worshiping. Now, it was really easy probably to understand this religion before they wrote the Bible, because I'm thinking before they wrote the Christian Bible, they were already practicing Christianity, I believe, before they wrote the Bible. And they were practicing it on the Passover with Yeshua as the God of the Passover, right? Now, Yeshua in a Greek variant of that word is, of course, Jesus. So later on, they wrote this story of Jesus based on the Passover and the Son resurrecting on the Passover. And so, because before they wrote that book, before the Christians had a book that told them who Jesus was the God of the Passover, and that's very obvious. Jesus, his flesh is the bread, and his blood is the wine. Well, that's like, and I'm not. No disrespect, but that's like Tammuz. Okay, they would take all the vegetation once, and they would make an idol out of Tammuz out of their vegetation, because Tammuz was a vegetation god, and Baal was a vegetation god, and Jesus, quite frankly, is too. But because I'm saying it comes from paganism, but I'm going to show you how it transcends paganism, because they lived off of wheat, and they made bread from wheat, so they lived off of wheat. They drank wine because it was safe to drink, and it tastes delicious. So they lived off of wine, and they lived off of bread, and they lived off of animal husbandry also, and the animals, of course, ate the. So what I'm saying is, Jesus is the God of the natural world. His body, his flesh, is the wine and the wheat and the fields. That's his flesh. And you see what I'm saying? And he's the God of the Passover. So before they made the story in the Gospels, this was probably all very obvious to everybody what they were talking about. And he's the Son. Jesus is the Son. He's the Son of God. Now, here's an interesting question, though. Was Jesus originally associated, because Joshua, when you look at the story of Joshua in the Old Testament, he really looks to me like a Orion figure. Like he seems like he's taking the role of Orion, like Joshua is Orion. Now you have to understand that the zodiac sign for springtime in the ancient calendar was Taurus, which is, of course, faced off with Orion. And so was Yahshua a reference to Orion at one time in the Old Testament? It could be, because I think what the point is that Jesus is the Son. Jesus is the resurrection of the Son. Jesus is the bread and the grapes, and he's the agriculture. He's the God of all those things, because that's his flesh, right? That's his flesh. His flesh is the vegetation of the earth. He's the God of this kingdom. He's the God of this kingdom. He's the God of life and livingness, and he's, I am the truth, I am the life. Okay, I don't want to get into that too much. I'm just telling you, before they wrote the book, and because there's two things. You have the story of Jesus occurring in astrotheology, in the sky, with the resurrection of nature. It's all occurring before your eyes. You don't need a book to tell you what's happening. Then they wrote a story about it, and then that story became the religion. Whereas before you had the religion was the spring Passover, which of course is celebrated on the full moon. And then Christ, we're told, isn't he the Passover lamb? So he's all those things. He's the sun, he's the bread, he's the wine, he could be Joshua. And because I'm just thinking, where did they get this name Joshua? What does it mean? It's kind of a mystery. In the Old Testament, Joshua appears, he's leading the Israelites, he's leading them, and he's following this golden ark, which is the sun. And is he Orion? Is Joshua Orion? Kind of seems that way. And of course, on the spring Passover, on the equinox Passover, in spring, the zodiac sign of that time for the ancient world was Taurus and Orion. And of course, Orion is a man. He's like the star man. So it's possible. I don't know. I can't say that for sure. But it may be that Joshua or Yahshua was originally a reference to that star man, because he's a figure of war, right? He's a figure of war in the ancient world. All of the tribes of the Middle East, all the warrior cults, they all had a name for Orion, and that was their god, right? That represented them because they're the warrior class, and that's how the Israelites were born out of that. So of course they would use that as a symbol of their cult was Yahshua, the star man. Now, I just can't. It seems like a plausible explanation, but I don't have I have no way to verify that. But of course, we know that Mithras is also Orion. He's depicted as Orion. But see, they moved that in Europe. They moved that to winter solstice. That's why it's on the winter solstice and no longer on the spring equinox. Because the new year in Europe, they moved it. The Greeks started their new year also in spring, and I believe that the Romans did it first. But they shifted it. They shifted it all to the winter solstice, so it confused the religion, because now you have the story of Christ's birth on the winter solstice, and then you also have the New Year celebrate, because now we have two New Year celebrations. That's the problem. That's another thing that confused the story. In the old calendar, the spring equinox is the New Year. There is not another New Year. It's the New Year is spring equinox. You get the full moon, and everyone celebrates on the full moon. They celebrate the spring equinox, and that's the New Year. Now we have a New Year, and the New Year is the winter solstice. So everyone celebrates the New Year on the winter solstice, and now the story's changed. And I don't know that that was part of the story before. And I don't think it was, because there was no winter solstice celebration in Judea before the Romans got involved and invented Hanukkah, which is another story. I'm not going to go into Hanukkah, but I'll just tell you that the Romans invented Hanukkah. It's not a Jewish holiday. It's not a Jewish holiday. It's not. Tell your Jewish friends they're not worshiping, they're not celebrating a Jewish holiday on Hanukkah. It's not. It's a Roman holiday. The Romans started inventing these winter solstice holidays for everybody, which is fine. I like the winter solstice. I love Christmas. So, but what I'm saying is, now people have abandoned. I'm abandoning paganism. Well, there's nothing in Christianity that says you can't be pagan. It says you're not supposed to worship other gods. Right? So if you're worshiping the God of Israel on all the pagan holidays, well, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what the original religion was. See, when Jerusalem was originally a pagan temple. There was a pagan temple in Jerusalem. When it switched over to monotheism under Hezekiah, now you could only worship to the Creator God on all these pagan holidays. So it's not like they came up with something. It's not like they were against the pagan holidays. It's just it was the God that they were worshiping. It had to be the Creator God, the God of Israel. They weren't doing away with paganism. They were doing away with the other gods. That's why I'm saying, if you disconnect yourself from paganism, which is essentially the ritual celebration of nature and its creator. The ritual celebration of nature and its creator. That's what Christianity is. And it's sad because that religion could have united all of Europe and all of America and all of Canada, all the Western world, could have stayed united around this religion, but because it became more and more disconnected from nature, first it was the stars and the agriculture, and that was the religion. You could see it in the world. Then they wrote a story about it. So now it's been removed from the world, and now you're reading a book about these events that are happening, but now you're like having to believe in them. Instead of going out and seeing them and every spring, you can see it happen. Now you're reading about it happening. Then, because people got more and more distance from paganism, went through the Protestant movements, one after another, they're trying to purify this religion. They said there must have been this one God that made this all pure for us. This must all be corrupted. That's what the Muslims think. Oh, this was all got corrupted, and originally it was all pure, and then it got corrupted by man. No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. It wasn't all pure and then got corrupted. It was all pagan, and then it became monotheism. And it's rooted in paganism. It's rooted in paganism. So the road to monotheism is paganism. Paganism is the road to monotheism. The natural world, the celebration of the spring Passover and the summer solstice and the autumn equinox. And also the winter solstice. Who doesn't like the winter solstice? I love it. I think it's fantastic. But I'm saying it did confuse the story a bit. So here's the deal. Originally, you had nature. You're surrounded by nature. You're connected to the stars. You're connected to the world. You're out there, herding your animals and animal husbandry and growing your wheat and growing your grapes. Well, that's Christ that's the body of Christ right there. People, you hear these preachers on the radio. They're like, "Oh, we are the body of Christ." No, you're not. You're not the body of Christ. The nature, the natural world is the body of Christ. The wheat and the grapes and all the vegetation, just like Tammuz, just like Baal. But we're not worshiping Tammuz anymore. We're not worshiping Baal because we're worshiping the purest God of truth and virtue, because it transcends paganism. So we've done away with those gods, but we're still celebrating these beautiful natural holidays, which explain the religion. So I was saying it's too bad, and I'm guilty of this. I encountered this religion of Christianity. I thought, this is weird. I don't understand it. It's just, none of this makes sense, because it was disconnected from nature. And of course, I was like, we should just go back to paganism. You can't go back to paganism because the reason why is you can, but you can't. We can't abandon this thing because this idea of the perfection of one's soul transcends everything. That's why we can't. That's why we can't go back to worship. I mean, you can celebrate. I just called myself Shamash, the Sun Man. Samson and Delilah, and I love all that stuff. But the thing is it's true that there is a higher order, a more perfect idea, which is the purity of the human soul and truth and virtue, which is where the Christian religion directs one's mind in that direction, and that's actually what we should retain. So, but here's the thing: most people have abandoned this religion, and I did too, because it's so nonsensical if you don't understand that it's connected to nature. And so I've been arguing with these folks on different groups, like these Facebook groups, and it's really fun. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm learning a lot about the religion itself by explaining it to them, which is that the winter solstice and the summer solstice and the spring and autumn equinox makes a cross. And you go back and you look at these old pagan crosses, and that's what a cross is referencing. It's referencing these four seasons, and you look at some of these old reliefs and imagery in these old Orthodox churches of Syria and Georgia and Russia and Eastern religion, and they've got Jesus in the center of a zodiac because they knew what the religion was. They were closer to it then. And that's not a deviation from the original. That is the original religion. It's astrotheology. The deviation was thinking we could purify it by getting rid of paganism. That's not how you purify it. The Bible purifies into paganism is where it came from. But what they did is they changed the God. They said that there is a more pure understanding of God, of nature, the natural world. You know, it's funny that Christians now, some of them, came to believe that Satan is the God of this world. No! Satan's not the God of this world. The Creator is the God of this world. See, that's how far they went. They went so far away from paganism that they inverted. And they don't understand the religion. And that tends to be like the people that got farther and farther away from Orthodox Christianity. So here's what we need to do in the West, because, you know, I don't make political videos because I can't on YouTube because they just get deleted. So that's why I only talk about this subject. But we need to, in Europe and America, Canada and Australia and all the Anglosphere, we really need to unite to save our civilizations around a religion. And we have the perfect religion to do that. It is Christianity when you know what it is and what it isn't. Now people think, oh, we're worshiping the gods of a foreign race. So here's the thing. The races of people that were there were many. You had the Sumerians, you had the Amorites, you had the Aryans, then you had the you had the Assyrians and you had the Egyptians. At some point, you had the Greeks, who were blonde, red-haired, very white. I mean, I just had people go, "Oh, Jesus was black," right? They had this like black Jesus, and he looks like he's from Pakistan or somewhere. All right, this is part of the anti-white, anti-European propaganda, say that Jesus wasn't white and all this kind of stuff. Jesus is the Son, but see, the story of Jesus. The people who came up with this were Greeks. Judea and Syria and the whole world, Egypt, was all conquered by the Greeks, and they were populating the area. They mixed with the Judeans, and they just became the Greeks. The Judeans really became the Greeks. And the Greeks, it was just, they were like, they ruled everything. They all spoke Greek, they were white. So this idea, so what I'm telling you, this is 300 BC, before Christ. For 300 years before Christ, there were white people there from Greek. They were Greeks. They were basically like Celtic, Germanic race that had invaded the Middle East and conquered everything. In Persia, these white men started calling themselves Mithridates, which is why you have this idea of the Aryans. Now, the Aryans were a Caucasian race, but they weren't these like Northwest Europeans. Okay. But they were close enough to where, you know, they were Caucasian, so the Greeks started adopting Persian culture, and they had Ptolemy, and he's adopting. They wanted all the knowledge of these Eastern civilizations, so they adopted it all, and they recorded it all, and in that they recorded the original translation of the Old Testament of the Bible, which we still have today, which is the Greek Old Testament, which we got 300 years before Christ in Greek. So we have the original. Now, that's the original Genesis and all the Leviticus and Exodus stories, right? But you go one step earlier and you're in paganism again, because you want to go back to Genesis in 300 BC when they wrote that, okay? Just earlier than that, the books were all pagan deities. And I've made other videos about that. So the Bible's rooted, and every single aspect of it is rooted originally in polytheism and paganism. They have a new God. It's okay. Genesis 3:2. God refers to himself in the plural, and then he says, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." It's the plural because the Christians they said, "What is this?" And they came up with the Trinity as an explanation. No, that's the Anunnaki. He was the king of the gods. The God of Israel in Genesis is the king of the gods. They later started calling those gods angels. The angels are just the Anunnaki gods, the planets Mercury and Saturn and Jupiter and Venus. Okay, those are the angels. Okay, Michael is Mercury, or Gabriel is some other planet. I mean, that's what they are. Okay, and originally those were the Anunnaki gods. So What I'm telling you is, paganism is the road to monotheism. The veneration, the ritual veneration of nature is Christianity. And Jesus Christ, Yeshua, is the symbol of the natural world, the creator of the world. And so you have the creator of the world and you have his flesh, right? The wheat of the fields, his blood, the juice of the grapes. That's his blood, man. Because he is like Tammuz and he is like Baal, the god of agriculture and the god of nature. The god of nature. The further you get from nature, the less you'll understand Christianity in its purest form. And so we need to get back to it, and we can. It's like we have a perfect religion all handed to us from our forefathers. We abandon it because nobody wanted to be pagan, and then everyone goes. But some people do. So then we have our own folks go, I'm abandoning this. I'm going to go back to worshiping Odin and Thor. You can do that. It's fine. I don't mind. I'm just saying, we already have a perfect religion all laid out for us. We just shouldn't be. Here's the way it should be. I like the way the Eastern Orthodox did. You have the Greek Orthodox and the Coptic Orthodox, and every nation has its own Orthodox church, so it's not under Rome. That's the problem. Rome is a big problem for everyone. Those people are the most deviant. Rome is the empire of Sodom. They're criminals. They're deviants. They're trafficking drugs. They're laundering money through their bank. They're trafficking heroin in from with the Taliban through the CIA. I mean, it's just nasty, nasty people, dude. We need to get away from those people. They're criminals. They're keeping everyone. I'm not even going to go into it. I'm not going to go into what they're doing. Dr. Fauci, Michael Ryan, Tedros, over at the World Health Organization. That's who they are. They're scum. So that's Rome. So Rome took this religion. It's very popular, very beautiful, and they said, let's turn this into an imperial religion. And it worked because people adopted it. It wouldn't have worked if people hadn't wanted to adopt it. Now, the further they got from nature, the further they got from realizing Christ is the God of the natural world, that he's the wheat of the field, and he's the blood of the grapes. Well, the further away they got from that, the more insane they got. Because they got disconnected from the natural world, and now they're just dealing with these weird ideas that don't apply to anything. And it was forced on them by a group of people who just wanted them to be submissive and terrorized into going to hell. Last topic, since I just brought that up. In the Old Testament, you'll find hell means grave. Heaven is the sky. And so astrotheology actually is a little misleading and misled people as to what the creator God really is. Because in the old pantheon, the Zeus or the Amen or these other Anu, they were the kings of the pantheon. They were the kings of the gods. And they were in the sky. And that's heaven. Okay, the sky is heaven, where the stars are. That's called the heavens. That's going to heaven. And of course the earth is, the grave is in the earth, okay? You go down into the earth, you're in your grave. You're in hell. Sheol, hell. So it's misleading to believe that God is in heaven. And astrotheology misled people into believing that God was in heaven. And it continued on into the Bible that God was in the sky. And that's not true. The Creator God is within us. And it says that in Luke 17:21, that the Creator is within us. And it's really connected to human consciousness, consciousness and conscience are two different things. Just, awareness and one's conscience, conscience, to know with, right? To know right and wrong. You have this inside you, this like guide, this divine guide that knows when you're doing right and knows when you're doing wrong. And if you followed every word of your conscience, you would live a life of perfect virtue, because that is divine truth within you. So the Creator God is within you, and it's not in the sky, it's not in heaven, it's not in hell, it's not any of those places. But it is within you, and if you deny it, then you kind of go to a miserable place, which you could call hell. And when you're with it, then you're in a happy place, which you could call heaven. See, those are metaphors which we can use, but don't be misled into thinking that it's external, it's internal. Okay, so moral of the story before I end this video. 1, Christ is the God of the Passover. He's the Son. He's the flesh of the earth. He's the natural world. That came from paganism. Paganism is the road to monotheism, and monotheism, unfortunately, was the road to atheism and secular humanism, because they got totally disconnected from nature. We get back to nature. We get back to the worship of the purity of the Holy Spirit within us, and that is the route for Western civilization. We can restore civilization through Christianity. We absolutely can, and we should. All of the pagans are welcome, as far as I'm concerned. Don't deny pagans, because the pagans are, that's the original religion. It's paganism. If paganism is about worshiping fictional gods, that's one thing. Original paganism wasn't about worshiping fictional gods. It was about celebrating the natural world and then anthropomorphizing the natural world into stories about them as gods. Why was the Bible so much more realistic? Why did everyone abandon their pagan deities for the God of the Bible? Because what did they do? When you're reading these old stories about the pagan deities, it's obvious they're stories. It's obvious they're fiction. But the Bible wrote stories of men who who had wives and children, and they went on and they carried. So it was very much more realistic to a human being, and that's why everyone abandoned the other thing for this, because it was more realistic. Because there was a point of reality there, that these were people like you and me, right? That was a point. I believe that's one of the greatest reasons why people abandoned all their pagan gods for this new religion. But it was deceptive in thinking that there's this God of the sky and blah blah blah. People found out that wasn't true, and they went to atheism. They rejected it for atheism. Well, the truth is, the God of the Bible is the God of righteousness. And where does righteousness occur? It occurs within you, in your soul. It's the God of the human soul. Also the God of the creation of the universe. So it's a good thing of it is two things there. And it's the perfect thing to unite the Western world, is this religion. As long as you don't take it too literally, as long as you understand that it's really not a religion of the book. The book is stories about it. It's really a religion of what's occurring on the Passover, on the the winter solstice, on the summer solstice, on the autumn equinox, with the phases of the moon, the motion of the zodiac. That is where the religion is. It's you don't have to read a book. I like the book, and there's good teachings in the book about being virtuous. But the religion is out. You can see it every day in the stars. That's where it comes from, and that's what we should unite around. Because you don't. I'm just saying, that's what we should unite around, to save our civilizations and perpetuate them in a beautiful. See, it's perfect, orderly civilization. Everyone has this in common. We all have the universe in common. So we all have something in common. The sun comes up every day. The moon changes every day. We all have that in common. We have spring and summer and fall in common. And the winter solstice, we all have it in common. Unless, of course, you live in the southern hemisphere and everything's reversed. See how that works? That's the message. We have the perfect religion. It's Christianity, but not literally. In its purest form is not literal. In its purest form, it's metaphorical. That's the purest understanding of it. And that is what we can rally around. Okay, that's it for tonight. Bye-bye.